Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Good Girls. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, you have Beth trying to kind of stay on top of things without Dean being around, but obviously, his absence is felt because the kids are like, oh, we want Pop-Tarts. There's no Pop-Tarts. Yeah, they are. They're up there where Dad keeps them, so it's like, obviously, like, he's kind of been the one that stayed at home, did a lot of stuff, so, like, there's a certain ebb and flow that he had with the kids and just kind of things that now that he's gone, like, it's just like, oh, obviously they just miss their dad in general. So, like, any stuff that correlates to him, they're probably going to want more of it anyway. But, you know, it's probably become a daily fixture in their lives in certain regards. I mean, it's their dad in general, but a lot of the things he does. So whether it's like, oh, we always got Pop-Tarts in the morning, you know, at the very least, they're going to associate with their dad, so they're just going to want it now anyway, you know. So it was actually kind of this sad thing. And obviously we have Dave and Phoebe showing up because it's like, all right, we're here to offer you a deal. Gonna wipe the board clean for everybody. We need Rio, but it's like, I don't know how to help you get near him. It's like, oh, you want me to text him or call him? And Phoebe was like, seriously? And he's like, no, I can't do that. Maybe in the past she could have, but obviously she's not on the best of terms with Rio. I don't know if she went into... I wonder how much did she go into explaining everything, being like, I did try to kill him before, and then an FBI agent stepped in and ended up getting killed by him. Like, I don't know how much detail she went in that regard, because she went about telling Phoebe her story last time, but kind of got stopped even before we got finished with essentially episode 1 of the show. So I'm curious... whether or not they really needed her to fill in any of the details. It's like, whatever you did, we don't care. Well, I mean, you would assume for like an immunity deal type of situation, you'd have to know all the details, so maybe they're going to work that out later. Maybe it was all kind of worked out then and there. Who knows? But obviously, because I was wondering because Phoebe got the picture last episode and the letters on the back, but I was wondering whether she was actually going to flip it over or not. And obviously, it makes sense she would end up flipping it over. And so it's like, we can compare this writing with the writing up here. So, because she was like, you know, Beth is like, no one's going to believe, I'm a mom, no one's going to believe I'm responsible. It's like, oh, look at this handwriting. Oh, I put hearts over the eyes too, so... Now she brings Annie as well as Ruby up to, you know, about everything. And it's like, well, we do this, we're dead. Like, obviously, they're never going to find our bodies type of dead. So it's like, what do we do? But also at the same time, figuring out, like, well, where do we go? Like, this is kind of our only option. But then Annie also reminds everyone, we still have that hitman thing. Like, obviously, our deal isn't going to work if the hitman ends up killing gang friend beforehand. So obviously part of this episode is meeting up with their contact, and it's like, oh, there's kind of a code. And I like that Ruby's like an Assassin's Creed. I'm like, oh, do you only know that because of your kids or something like that? Or is that just kind of just in the terms of just a general Assassin's Creed? You weren't necessarily referencing the game. I mean, obviously that's where the game's, you know, name comes from anyway. Just literal as Assassin's Creed, an Assassin's Code. But nevertheless, it's like, he's like, well, you want me to do this for you guys? I don't want your money. You're going to owe me a favor. He's like, we'll do anything for you. He said, anything? They're like, yeah. And it's like, all right, you're going to have to do this. Like, obviously I love how they just like misconstrue everything, because everyone's like, oh, Jesus. They're like, oh, God, we're going to have to, it's like, and he's like, me? And he's like, I don't care. All three of you. Who cares? And it's like, and Ruby's like, oh, God. So like all three of us are going to have to sleep with him. And then you have Annie being like, all right, fine, let's go in the bathroom. What? Bathroom? It's like, order the car, 5 minutes, who cares? And it's like, what? No, I'm married. It's like, I'll text you what I want. And it's like, okay. So later on, they proceed to do some shopping. They gather up all the materials. And it's not until they finish, well, because also I thought it was kind of interesting, the whole situation of like, Beth is like, Dean would kind of burp the kids' names as they go to sleep. And he's like, oh, that's not that hard. And Beth's like, it's harder than you think. And he cracks open a drink, pops it back, and does it without fail. It's like, well, Annie, you're a special breed. You're awesome in your own right. So it's like, that's not something every mom is capable of. You're kind of in your own lane with that. So not many other parents could do what you do. But what I loved is obviously they're piecing it together to be like, oh my God, I know what we're making. It's like all this stuff. This is stuff used for a bomb, but Ruby's the one kind of slowing the upkeep, being like, what? He got to buy all that stuff. And Beth is mouthing the word bomb. He's like, what? And Andy's like, come on, just say it. It's like, no, there's people around. And it's like, you know what happened? I think she was kind of referencing like a karaoke performance or something. Remember what happened? She's like, yeah, I crushed it. No, the other time. Yeah, I was super sick. It's like, no, the other time we had a little bit of a scratchy throat. It's like, yeah, it wasn't that great. What happened? I bumped, and I love the hard cut when they said, like, before she even finishes it. So, I wonder, are you not illegal? Did they cut it like that just for comedic purposes, or is there actually a legal reason why you can't do that? Like, say, associating what they're making with literally saying the word verbally. Maybe that, or also maybe it's just kind of like oh, I got it now. Like, maybe I think it was just for comedic purposes. But now everyone's worried. It's like, man, this could be used to take out a choir, a church, well, or maybe like a bus. And it's like, wait, you go like, we're going to take out a bus church choir? Like, I can't live with myself if we're responsible for something like that. But at the end of the day, it was like the most heartbreaking thing where one of Beth's children was like, I want a juice. And she's like, yeah, here you go, honey. And she's like, I miss daddy. And it's like, oh, dagger to the heart. And just, you have Ruby and Annie in the back just kind of looking at you like, it's one of those like pull your collars, yikes moments. It's like, but that was like a dagger through the heart. I miss daddy. Ah, that's one of those things you see in a cartoon where someone like gets shot with a bow and arrow and it hit them multiple times and they kind of die. Like, it'd be one of those, like, it'd be a gif of that playing over and over again in that moment. I was like, or kind of the Simpsons thing of, you can see in this moment right here, just when I'm butchering it. It's like Bart's telling Lisa, like, look at this. You can see the exact moment when her heart starts to break. It's kind of, but I love the entire time too, because it's like, yeah, if we go to jail, it's like, oh, we'll be cuddling up to Deansy. It's like, they're not co-ed. It's like, no, it's worse. We'd go to a women's prison, and they're much worse. It's like, yeah, Ruby's like, I heard that they make you basically the guards force you to get it on, and they even watch. And even Ruby being like, eventually, if we're all in the same prison, we'd all end up having to kind of get it on. But also, it's like Ruby even being like, I heard that like a warden was even watching and recording it. So it's like, for Beth, it's like she's made up her mind. It's like, fine, whatever, even if a bus has to get exploded because of this, oh well, I got to get my children, I got to get Dean back to his kids. And they're dropping all the stuff off and everything. And I love that they're just like, okay, so what do you go, it's like, well, trying to get in contact with the hitman and everything, yada, yada, yada. I love the whole thing of like, they're like, fine, we're getting out of here. It's like, yeah, this is for my mom. And they're looking like, wait, what? You're going to kill your mom? It's like, because obviously in their mind, it's like, they think it's a bomb. It's like, wait, you're doing this for your mom? It's like, yeah. She's 75, survived cancer. Since the cancer didn't do it, I thought I'd do this to her. And it's like, they're looking like Jesus. And then at the end of the day, it's like, no, it's for a garden. And they're like, a garden? Yes, for my mom. She beat cancer. It's a prize for beating cancer twice. And they're all looking at each other like, oh. And my favorite line, you bitches are sick. It's like the second time they misconstrued him in this episode, because they think just because he's such a... I mean, I guess they're so used to hanging with Rio, plus we're dealing with assassins, hitmen here, so they're kind of expecting the worst of like, oh, like, it's like, it's so crazy to me. Because the way they were treating Home Dude, it was like he's some deranged sociopath. I mean, you have to be on some level to be a hitman. But I thought that was so interesting. And since I brought Dean up, it is interesting that Beth does come to visit him about, like, basically kind of letting him know about the deal. And it's like, hey, let's move to Las Vegas. It's like, oh, the kids tell me about your Pop-Tarts. They're not as fortified as you think. Or at the very least, it was like, they're actually more fortified than you would think. Well, I guess she's like, I guess she would already know. And she's trying to break the ice a little bit. But for Dean, he only puts up in appearances. It seems like he's only okay with Beth as long as the kids were around. But now it's like, oh, they're not around right now, so I kind of have no reason to be here talking to you. But she's like trying to make things right. She's just like, just don't give up on me. But the sad thing is Dean kind of has, because it's like, even if we move to Vegas, it's like, oh, you're going to move there with the kids? Because it's like, and what am I supposed to do? Just pretend like none of this happened? So it's like, it doesn't erase everything that they went through. His name kind of being dragged through the mud, obviously knowing that Rio was a part of this operation, even though he explicitly asked her and begged her not to let him be involved in this, and he was. So But we do see later on Dean's in his cell and he's looking at it because that Nevada, I think it kept him going strong. Of like, regardless of how he feels, to be able to be with his family, you know, wanting to live in Nevada is kind of what he wanted. He wanted to live in Las Vegas anyway. It's always kind of been like a dream. So for him, it gives him hope, you know, that it's like, oh, I really won't have to wait that 30 years. So obviously everyone's kind of dealing with their issues on their own front. Obviously with Annie, we had the whole situation of Ben. Obviously she's talking to Josh about, obviously it's been hard not having Ben around, because for her it's like stuff that she used to rely on Ben so much for, because once again Ben's the more, she's like, Ben's smarter than me, Ben's better than me, so he kind of kept me on track, and now without him, and just obviously she's very lonely and lost, and so she wants to do whatever she can to kind of make some excuse to kind of get Ben back. But you know, Josh ends up using this elaborate metaphor about you know, catching monarchs with a net, that you can't catch them with a net. Like, you even saying the line of, you basically can't force someone to like you. So, and Annie kind of takes that and tries to, you know, because obviously she was going to try and bribe him with tickets to a concert, but she ends up throwing them away because it's like, no, I got to handle things a better way. And even later on, she shows up at one of Ben's games, and she's kind of getting away. It's like, Mom, I see you, like, hey, Mom, like, what are you doing? And it's like, yeah, oh my God, yeah, you were so great. You scored like 20 points. It's like, I actually only scored 3. It's like, yeah, but that's more than you scored last time. You scored 2 last time. It's like, no, I only scored 1. Yeah, but that penalty kick should have counted. It's like, wait, how many of my games have you been to? A few, 1 or 2, a few, a bunch, all of them. I was like, oh, that's sweet, you know? And obviously, you know, one of his friends is calling him back over. It's like, but, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you could have just told me. But she's like, yeah, I didn't want you to, you know, didn't want you to, you know, get distracted by like your number one fan being there. But it's like, no, you go in with your friends and go get ice cream. And it's like, oh, you want to come too? Some of the other parents are going to be there. And she's like, you know what? I kind of got a thing to do, but, you know, you go on ahead. And I thought that was nice. Because for her, it was like, because it's like she can't like she's going a little cold turkey right now. And so it's kind of like her codependence on Ben. It's like, I need to kind of let him kind of, you know, stretch out more. I need to learn to kind of be okay without Ben, so that Ben's able to just kind of live his life, you know? So I thought that was kind of a nice moment. And then the monarch landing on her windshield, I was like, oh, is this moment? I thought something else was going to happen to it, but then her just going ill and turning on her windshield wipers. I was like, oh, you kind of destroyed the beautiful circle of a metaphor that was being created there. Though she does end up bringing the monarch. I guess she didn't think about it at the time, but she thought about it afterwards. Like, oh, right, the monarch. So she brought it to Josh as a gift. But she tells Josh that this is going to be the last, you know, time, you know, with their sessions. And he's like, wait, no, but, and for her, she repeats the line of, you can't force someone to like you. Obviously, Josh likes her, but it's his complicated feelings. It's both a therapist, plus he's in a relationship. So rather than just kind of leaving his girlfriend and being with Annie because he felt like this was the right thing to do, I think he felt like this was the right thing to do for his girlfriend, for himself, for Annie. He probably thought that was the best choice, because if them getting together, like, he felt like it probably would have ruined things in many different fronts. Because obviously he cares about her. He wants to spend time with her. So the sessions weren't just about helping her. It's also like, it was kind of like almost like, you know, Annie thought of them like that as dates in the past, and I think Josh kind of thinks of them like that too. So he can't outwardly be like, no, I want this to kind of continue, but it's also because she's like, eventually she's going to have to leave, depending on, I mean, it makes you, obviously I think for Annie it's a little easier too, just because it's like, well, Ben's already living with his dad, so if I have to move or whatever, then, but maybe she's looking at this as an opportunity of like, yeah, I can help continue to grow while Ben stays with his dad, but then like my new setup, I can be better, I can grow and I can change, and then Ben will kind of want to spend more time. Maybe that's her way of thinking about things, but in her mind it's like, oh, I'm cured. It's like, obviously she's always thought she's gotten cured before with kind of some of her issues, but she's kind of backpedaled in the past. So on the other front, we have Stan and, you know, doing all the stuff he's doing with Gene. I even love that thing of like, we see him like punching something. I'm like, wow, Stan's going at somebody like that? Damn, that's rough. But then we find out it's him trying to bust open the register, and the guy's like, the key's on the left, on the other side. And after Stan like busted his hand a little on the register, he finds the keys, like, thank you. And he does it, sure. And it's just like, okay, that makes you feel at least a little bit better. It's like, I think Stan has like, lines he won't cross. Granted, we only got montages of some of the other stuff he had to do. It was criminal stuff, not too bad, but we do see at one point in time he goes somewhere with a whole bunch of zip ties. We never really got to see what that was all about. But everything else, it's like, oh, he comes out with it looked like an anaconda, a very large snake. Obviously, at one point in time, he's cutting open like a drink machine, getting all the quarters and the coins and stuff. So those are like the smaller, petty things, but we don't know what he had to do on a grander scale. Which obviously he's keeping all of this from Ruby, just being like, oh, I gotta go to work. I just want to make sure I stay on Jean's good side. Obviously she's telling him about, oh, maybe we could sell the house. So she's like taking measurements and stuff and kind of planning on replacing things with better equipment so that it can make it so that the house will sell at a higher value. So, but obviously for Stan, it's like, oh, we take this time to just kind of dream. He doesn't think of it as a reality, just them kind of fantasizing. And obviously he tells Jean, hey, I'm done. Can I get my old job back? Jean's like, yeah, let's talk tomorrow. I'm like, I have a feeling about that. Lo and behold, he walks in. There's new security. A cop rolls up talking about the register situation, being like, oh, yeah, the guy fitting your description. Let me see your hands. And you're like, Jean set this whole thing up. But he's like, no. My guy was working Tuesday and stuff like that. It was a party. So, yeah, I'll have a guy send over the videotape footage, just yada, yada, yada. And for Jean, it's like, right, so you're going to go be out in the car in 10 minutes. We got other stuff to do. So just when now Stan knows that at any point in time, Jean is ready to kind of screw him over. So it's like, sadly, Stan's just going to have to smile and take it. So this is kind of his like that security job has already been taken from him, and Jean's kind of like, you're kind of mine from now on. So there's no going back for you. So and you're not done until I tell you you're done. It's like it's going to be a thing of, it's always going to be a never-ending thing of like, I own you in many different regards. So I'm going to run this I'm assuming until he drops dead. So once again, still not telling Ruby what's up, but I'm wondering if eventually where that storyline's going to go. Like, obviously, maybe Jean's going to keep pushing it further until Stan gets locked up, or maybe Stan ends up kind of breaking Jean because of it. Or just, I'm curious to see how that's ultimately going to play out, because things can't keep going like this forever. At the very least, you hope they don't for Stan's sake. So obviously, another side of things is we have Beth finally having her meeting with Hitman, and obviously she's trying to pull back on a contract, which is like, he immediately takes it as like, oh, like, that's why I don't get do jobs about jilted lovers. She's like, why does it even matter? Just like, I need him alive. The moment she said that, it was like, you cut a deal. It's like, what are they planning on giving you? Full package and everything. Well, I think she talks about it later with Rio. Where are they planning on locating you? She's like, I don't know. It's just, for her, it's like, this is my chance to get my life back. And for him, it's like, well, he's disappointed because he's like, I thought you were something special. She's like, I'm a mom. And he's like, yep. Kind of almost like the world needs more of those. Like, because he was like, you just want to live like a cul-de-sac life. I was offering you Fiji, but for her, it's like, I have a family to think about. Like, she's like, even if I wasn't taking this deal, I wasn't going to ever run away with you. It's like, home dude's obsessed with her. But it's still the thing of, I'm going to do my job. I'm not pulling out of this contract. I guess it's more so because, yeah, he knows it's screwing her over and he cares about her, but I almost think he wants to do it so he can put her in a position where she has no choice but to come to him. I don't know. I think some weird way he was kind of holding out hope that basically if he did this, she'd kind of have no choice and like, oh, you'll fall for me and we can spend time together, yada, 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 so forth. So obviously, later on, she goes to Rio, drinks and everything, and talks about what she did before. She was like, oh, this and that, and the cookies. It was just like, obviously, all the stuff she did before she got mixed up with Rio. And when it's all said and done, I thought it was, she obviously is kind of hinting like she doesn't want to go back to that. So, hey, they want you. And he's like, the Fed? She's like, Secret Service. I kind of lets him know. And it's like, all right, the moment she's like, making her decision, and she shows him a picture, and it's like, this is the guy who head honcho, his name's Dave. It's like, he doesn't look like it, yeah, but he's the one that's running things. The moment they didn't show the picture, I was like, I know what you're doing, Beth. You're sending Rio to kill the hitman, because on multiple fronts this works, because not only do you remove the hitman from the equation and keep Rio alive, Now Rio will be thinking like, nah, you turn on Secret Service for him. That like, all right, I'm gonna trust you a little bit more. I'm gonna give you a little more leeway, so that way it gives her an opportunity to gain more and more of his trust to, you know, find out what they want, and then that is to find out what money he's got circulating, like what he's doing with the money and stuff like that, because that's still a big part of Rio's operation. We're not aware of like what he does exactly. Like obviously we've seen the girl ladies, like their side of the with the money and stuff like that, but we haven't seen his side of the criminal activities, what he's fully capable of. So that's what they kind of want at the end of the day, and this kind of bridges that gap a little bit for Beth. And so Hitman's ready, lining up his sights and everything, and then, you know, Rio catches him off guard, and he's like, I'm impressed. He's like, that's basically saying like, never underestimate Beth, you know. He even has the gun. He's like, oh, you guys are really going all out for me, which Hitman is like, yeah, you know, sorry, but you know, professionalism and stuff like that. And so he has a gun in his suit, a smaller gun in his suitcases. He's putting his rifle away, but Rio was like, "Don't do that." And it's like, all right. I'm sure the easiest thing. Well, I'm about to say the easiest thing would be if they both killed each other, but it's like, nah, that would still complicate things. So this is the best option. So, and then the moment it's like Rio calls him Dave, he's like, Dave, pow, and it's like, right. But what's interesting, though, is like, hey, thanks for helping me out. It's like, oh, new plate. Who's the artist? Yeah, I'm not going to tell you. Last time I told you, you saw how that worked. He's like, oh, I understand. She's like, I'll take a smaller cut. He's like, no, you're good. We're cool. And she's like, we are? He's like, yeah. What was interesting, though, is that Dave, that big kahuna, he wasn't there to arrest me. He was planning on taking me out. She's like, oh, I must have been their last resort. The fact is they were willing to go that far. And he's like, huh. Maybe. So it's like, yeah, listening to, probably hearing Dave's final words and also thinking about the circumstances of everything and her response, he's probably figured it out. That wasn't Dave. That was a hitman. He's probably seeing like some of her plan. I don't know. You never know with Rio, because Rio's a lot smarter than like they give him credit for. So I think he's already seeing through Beth a little bit. But we'll see if this gamble of hers is going to pay out in the long run, because she took because this is the only means of getting. Yes, they wanted Rio out of the picture, but it's like now it's like Hitman needed to be taken out of the picture because Rio needs to stay alive. Because this could be an opportunity to get not only Dean out of jail, get them out of the situation. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I think, based on the number of episodes, I'm assuming that this would have been what was originally going to be the season 3 finale. Because this would have been episode 16 if I'm not mistaken. Once again, it's one of those production things of, I wonder how much did they skew and change things, because like, is this like 100% how season 3 was going to end, or did they change and adapt certain things because they had more time and they're like, all right, since we're already going to like be flowing this into season 4 and kind of get season 4 to flow through, because this almost feels like any other episode, but you could definitely, with considering everything that went down, you could definitely feel this to be a season finale. So it definitely feels like a season finale, but they might have weaved it a little more to feel like just another episode in the season, so it kind of ebb and flows a little bit. Like I said, I've talked about it with other shows. You can kind of feel which episodes were definitely the season finales and which ones were just another episode in the season. Like it just has a feel in like the way it flows. And I think, I don't know, it feels like certain aspects of this kind of make it seem like it could just be another episode, but you definitely feel the season 3 finale in it. So makes you curious to really see what the flow of the rest of the season is going to be after this episode, and just what this means going forward. So once again, they're all in on this front. This is kind of their only option. It gives them a clean slate of everything. It gets Dean out of prison. Once again, Rio's kind of picking up on things, because there's still the element of, because someone had corrected me about the whole Annie thing, that like Annie wasn't saying like, oh, put my fingerprints on the gun, which I interpreted as someone was saying like, no, it's Annie saying like, get rid of the gun, so that's still something that hasn't been circled back to yet. So I'm sure that's going to come up later on, because this whole Lucy thing, I'm sure it's not going away, but we're probably going to get a lot more interaction between the trio and Dave and Phoebe. I'm interested to see kind of things on that front. Probably like going forward, we'll probably get a little bit more of that now that they're 100% on the same side on trying to take down Rio. So it's going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good